All right. Well, I'm really excited. I have a guest here who I've been looking forward to speaking to for some time now, Angela Lewis. I appreciate you for coming on the show today. How are you?
Matt, I'm great. I'm so excited to finally dive into this conversation. It has been a long time coming, and I'm glad we're
Yeah,
able to
but
get it
even
done.
even with that, I follow your story. I We met unofficially on LinkedIn, I would say.
Hmm.
I just saw your post, your kind of your story, who you were speaking to, and I think we connected on that. And then we did have a chance to hop on a call where I got to hear more about your story, and I became such a big fan of yours there that I know for those who tend to listen to this show, the value that you're going to bring to them is going to be immense because I think it was maybe 30 minutes we got to speak, and I left there excited. So, thank you again for your time. I know you're busy. I know you have a lot going on, but if you can, for our listeners and those watching and listening to this, just tell us a little bit about who you are, your background a little bit before we dive into what you have going on today.
Sure. So I am really grateful to be here. We had an amazing conversation, a little bit about my background. I am an author, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, and I am really passionate about helping athletes have the life skills, particularly communication skills, to thrive in life. So I'm 6'1". I've been this tall since I was 12 years old, and I'm originally from St. Louis. And I wasn't very good when I started, but I ended up playing NCAA Division I basketball professionally in Germany and then coached at every level from my niece's fifth grade team through NCAA Division I professionally. And I've published multiple books for young women. So the heartbeat of who I am is I love being on the court and I love teaching the game, but I'm equally, if not more passionate about making sure the athletes understand how to express themselves and use their voice for good.
That's awesome. Now, I don't want to. I want to hear more about that, but I don't want to gloss over the fact you played Division One sports, which we have in common. But then you went overseas to Germany, a whole. Well, I'm imagining a whole different world for you for kind of making that change. Tell me a little bit about that. I'm always interested to hear kind of how sports takes us places in life while we're playing it.
Sports has the ability to connect cultures in ways that I don't know too many other things that can. Maybe educational institutions, but sports is incredible. So I went to Germany. And for context, Matt, I traveled two places growing up, Memphis, Tennessee, and Mount Bayou, Mississippi.
Oh
That's it.
wow, that's
We
it.
didn't travel much. So for my family, for me to actually go and live in another country without being in the military was a really, really big deal.
Yeah,
And I learned so much. It was really challenging because I hadn't spoke German ever, nor
yeah,
had I heard it much. But the culture really helped me become more comfortable being uncomfortable and it fed my bug for traveling and love for traveling. And
yeah.
I recently lived in Medellin, Colombia for 2.5 years. Had I not had that experience so young going to Germany, then the Colombian experience wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. And then so when you made that decision to go to Germany, what was your vision for life then? Right? You just finished playing college basketball. Obviously, you're chasing that professional dream. What was your vision at that point?
My vision was to play basketball. The
Yeah.
only vision that I ever
Yeah.
had to do with sport and basketball. I loved the game so much and still do
Hmm.
so much that it's always been kind of at the core and center.
Right.
Even the living in Colombia, I went down there to do a basketball clinic, and that led to me living there. So basketball has been a major cornerstone for cultural connection, for travel, exploration, and friendship.
Yeah. So you're willing to make a big move like that, right? You're going to Germany. It's a different language, a different culture. So obviously, you're chasing that dream with a ton of intention of making it work. When you got to that point to when you realized, okay, I have to make a pivot here, which all of us athletes get to at some
Mhm.
point. If you're lucky enough to take it as far as you did, that's a blessing, right? I took it to Division One, and I knew in college that I needed to make a pivot, and that was a hard thing for me. I wasn't All my intention was always in playing sports and playing baseball. That's what I put everything into. Tell me a little bit about that point to when you realized I have to start to think about something else. What was that like for you?
Matt, I've come to this realization recently, And I don't think this is talked about enough. There's this conversation around like, oh, you have to change your identity and become something else. At 43, I've learned that's not true. Like, I am the same person at the core who love the game and understands the power of the game. You just learn new skills. So for me, the pivot was I'm still a ball player at heart. Now let me go coach and teach other people how to play. So if athletes are listening, you don't have to become this other person. There's a mentee that I have. She was a D1 volleyball player. I'll give you an example. And now she's sort of mental performance coaching. And she said, well, there was someone that told me that I need to be more businesslike and I need to not lean on the fact that I played college volleyball. No, lean on that because that's actually
Mhm.
going to help you more.
Yeah.
So, athletes, if you're listening, if you're a coach or you're coaching athletes, don't tell them they have to be something different. No, stay that person and then build skills on top of that because you clearly have done something right to have made it
Yeah.
to that point.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for saying that. That's kind of the premise of what I believe in because I did struggle with that. I did feel like I had to change my identity. I almost felt like being an athlete held me back from the real world, right? Like I didn't get the
Hmm.
same opportunities for, let's say, internships in college or because we were playing. In Division One, there's a lot of time commitment to your craft. But it wasn't until I realized that when I was trying to make my way into the professional world, I had so much awareness of the skills from sports that transferred over to the professional world. Teamwork, leadership, discipline. Oh, you can go down the list of it. And that's when I started to appreciate the fact and my experiences as an athlete and take them to that next point. And a lot of people who we work with need to hear that sometimes because they feel, like I'm not sure if anyone else is going to relate to this. Like we had somebody, it was a great point that we were speaking to, and he said, how do I relate how important it was to be an athlete, or how do I get it across to the person who's going to interview me who's never been an athlete, um, everything that I accomplished and how hard that is? And that was a tough question, and I would kind of like to hear what you would say to him when it's you're sitting and he's going to school for pharmaceuticals and he's
Hmm.
anticipating that the person across from him probably wasn't a Division One athlete. Not any judgment, obviously he's going to be there, but just in case, what are some of the things that you think being an athlete really did for you to set you up where you are now?
Three big things. Oh, I love this question. There are three big things. The first thing that I would recommend that being an athlete did for me that I recommend any athletes who are going into an interview say. The first thing is I know how to stick with something and see it through. How to be really bad and then become a professional or to be really bad. Everyone knows when you start playing basketball. When I started, I was 6'1", but I wasn't good. I
Hmm.
learned how to stay with something and go from being a novice to a professional. So first, I can stick with things, which is
Yeah.
critical. Employers want to hear that.
Mhm.
The second thing that we talk a lot about is being a team player. But what's more important if you're a young professional is that you're coachable. Employers don't want to hear about how great of a team player. Everyone says that. People aren't saying I am coachable and I'm here to learn. So
Yeah.
let them know you're coachable. Sports gave me that. And then the third thing that sports gave me is this willingness to get back up when I get knocked down. And you can give examples. We lost the big game, but we had to go back and practice the next day. Your ability to bounce back will set you apart because you're not going to know everything and you're going to make mistakes. So employers want to know that you have that in you.
Yeah. Wow. I wish you were on that call with us. We could have. That was better than me. That was a better answer than I had for it. But I'm going to use that. I'm going to
Please
use that for
do.
sure because it's so true. I like it. For baseball, for me, if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're potentially a Hall of Famer, right?
Right?
You're so used to failing and getting back up, and baseball and basketball are kind of similar in that expense. Like baseball, we played a lot of games in a row. We played 53 in a season, right? So you can have a bad game, but then you come back tomorrow and it could be a totally different story, right? So just bouncing back to your point. And then here's a question I have for you, which and this is personal from my standpoint. Being an athlete, I was always really good at being coachable, and you mentioned being coachable. And I think that's a strong trait to have. But I did struggle in my world. So as an entrepreneur, business owner, I did struggle. Um, when it became time to be my own boss and make my own decisions, I was always for the last 4 to 6 years at that point in time, kind of being told where to go, what to do, what time to be there.
Mhm.
That standpoint. How do you, or what would you recommend to somebody and how to kind of stand on their own 2 feet in that sense? Trust their voice, trust what they know, trust their skills, and go out into the professional world because you're somebody who has done some things, writing books, speaking in front of
Mhm.
large crowds, where you have to really be comfortable with who you are. Was that hard for you? And do you have any advice for someone who may be struggling with that, who's a little bit younger, just getting into the real world?
Oh, this is so good. This is so good. My advice is don't trust yourself. You don't know enough to trust yourself. It's like starting off as a basketball player and being expected to score 20 points in a game. You've never played the game before.
Mm-hmm.
How can you expect to know how to play the game if you've never played? My advice, one of two things. One, if you're incredibly ambitious and you have capital, then pay to be a part of a program that gives you a model that works, that is proven and that works, so that you know that you'll be successful. Or go work for someone who actually has done the thing that you want. You still need a coach. You don't have to, I'm not saying hire a coach. I'm saying be around people who've done what you want to do so that you can learn from them. And then eventually you find your voice.
Yeah.
One of my friends recommends this great book. It's called Still Like an Artist. And Still Like an Artist basically says take all the goodness you can get, learn as much as you can from all these different areas, and then create your own voice. You don't have a voice if you've never done a thing before. You're going to sound insecure because you are, and you should be. You've never done it, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Just go give yourself time to learn it. You're not going to be great immediately. So, one of two things. One, pay to be a part of a program so that you can learn to accelerate your success so you can build the confidence. Or two, just go work with someone who's already done it and help them be a good teammate. And with knowing that you're there to learn and then you're going to go off and do your own thing.
So just almost not being afraid to fail initially, right?
Well, because you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Like that is literally inevitable. You're going to
Yeah.
miss shots, you're going to strike out. Like you actually aren't going to do well all the time. And knowing that actually brings comfort and lessens anxiety.
Yeah. And also knowing you're not alone in that too, right? Everyone else
Mhm.
starts somewhere, right? And I think that's the big thing. I think you nailed it because for me it was a franchise. I knew I wanted to be in health and
Ah,
wellness, and I invested in the
okay.
franchise, and that's where my journey started. I had one person who believed in me. I was coaching after baseball. I was coaching baseball. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had someone who believed in me and brought me this idea of investing in a franchise. They knew that in general, I graduated with a sports science degree. So they kind of had that. They knew I was an athlete. And so when I got into the health and wellness industry, I learned so much from investing capital. So definitely had skin in the game. So
Mhm.
I had to make it work, which I was okay with that feeling because I feel like that's kind of what we are as athletes. You got to perform when it's on, when the lights are on. Um, what was it for you? So I know you mentioned you coached a little bit. Tell me kind of how your life after playing happened. Where'd you
Sure.
go?
Yeah, so after playing, I started coaching like most people, as like you mentioned, most players. I coached and I also worked in various school districts. So I didn't coach like a high school team. I did let me take one step back.
Hmm.
After playing, I went to graduate school
Okay.
and I coached at the high school level. I coached NCAA Division III. I coached NCAA Division I, was director of ops at Marquette, coached with the St. Louis Surge, and then did camps and clinics and trainings. So my goal at that time was how do I learn as much as possible about how to help athletes prepare for life? And that prompted me to write books. So for me, when I was playing and coaching, I was always fascinated with, well, what happens after? How do you find mentors? How do you prepare? So, working in educational settings, in nonprofit settings, I was always looking for how do I connect people to opportunity? That's the heartbeat of who I am. Basketball gave me the doors to walk into, but the heartbeat of who I am is how do we help people have access to life-changing opportunities because basketball gave that to me.
Hmm.
So if you're listening to this, the question is, what are you naturally drawn to? For you, franchising, business, I wasn't drawn to business. I was just wanted to help people, right? I
Yeah.
didn't know any franchise. There weren't entrepreneurs in my family that I knew. So
Mhm.
what are you drawn to? I was drawn to connecting people to opportunities. So I've done everything, Matt, from taking kids on college tours to after
Yeah.
school programs, summer programs, entrepreneurship camps, basketball clinics, bringing in guest speakers, running panel discussions, hosting mentoring days, like all of that, because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And of course, writing books. So, what is it that you're drawn to? And let that be your guide.
Yeah. I love that. Now, you mentioned it a couple times. Did you have an inspiration, a mentor? Did you have someone who you could rely on during that period of your life? Was there somebody that you counted on for direction?
Yes, a lot of people at
Hmm.
different times for different things.
Yeah.
One of the people was a college professor. One of the persons, one of the people, one of one of my mentors was one of my
Yeah.
college professors, Dr. Robert Krizek. And I had this big vision. And I was in my early 20s, and I remember showing it to him. And it was all drawn out, like books, camps, clinics, global this, like all these things. And he looked at me and said, "Oh, looks like you have a lifetime of work." And I was thinking, no way, like this is going to happen now,
Yeah.
not knowing that it literally takes a lifetime. It takes time to bring those things out. So you need people. So he was one for sure, Dr. Krizek, who helped me gain perspective on what it actually takes to bring these things to life.
Yeah.
My mom and dad were amazing. I always had a safety net with them. I always knew that they were there for me, older brothers. So I've had a number of people in different times in my life who've
Yeah.
helped me out tremendously.
And and I'm digging down this road because it relates to me. I guess two-part question. Do you feel like that is a must-have to have somebody that you can get honest feedback from? And then do you have an instance? I know you just mentioned your professor who kind of did this, but do you have an instance of where somebody had to give you tough feedback on your direction or your thoughts? Did you have encounter that at any point?
Yes. So to answer your first question, do you need that? Yes, you need feedback from people who are doing what you want to do. You don't need feedback from everybody
Yeah,
because some people can't give you advice. If someone wants to know how to rollerblade, I can't help you with that.
yeah,
Good luck.
yeah.
In my first book, The Game Changing Assist, I call these groups of people, two groups of people. One is your cheer squad. That's
Mhm.
like my mama. She's going to cheer me on. But my mama
Mhm.
cannot help me with basketball at all. The people who help me with basketball were my all-star team. Your all-star team are the people who can help you get to wherever it is you want.
Yeah,
So both are valuable.
yeah.
And they could be people you know in real life or people who are part of a group on LinkedIn or people are part of an association. They don't have to be family and friends because often those aren't the ones. And
Hmm.
that's okay. Just let them be
Hmm.
your cousin. They don't have to
Hmm.
be,
Yeah,
your
that's it.
mentor. Okay.
That's it.
So answer your first question. Yes, you need feedback and it needs to come from people who are where you want to be. That bucket. Second question is about, do I have an instant where someone had to tell me the truth? Yes, I have a friend who's a business mentor. He's incredible. Ron Story Jr., he's the owner of Speaker Hub and amongst other businesses. And he said to me, you don't have a product problem. Because I was telling him about my book and how I wanted to sell more and get in front of more people. He said, you have a belief problem. If you really believe that this could help young women in the way that you say it can, then you would be telling every coach about it. You would be telling everyone about it. You would do the things that show that you have the belief. And I was like, ooh, ooh,
Yeah, yeah,
that hurts. Is it
yeah,
am I afraid that they're like what? So
yeah,
yeah, I can always count on him and others
yeah.
to tell me like it
I
is.
I think that's great. Well, to highlight it, I appreciate it. Cheer squad and all star squad, right? Because I am a firm believer that it's okay to, and how do I say this without putting it the wrong way? I think it's okay to listen to what people have to tell you, but I think it's also a strong suit to know where the value is and to be
Mhm.
honest on where the value is because you can find an opinion wherever you look for one. And everyone's gonna have an opinion, right? And sometimes it's easy. I think sometimes we get lost and think that if we look for opinions, they're always gonna be negative and there's gonna be the haters out there. But I also think there's people out there who might be afraid to tell you what's real and be afraid to tell you, man, you've been talking about this for 2 years now. We're still talking about the same thing, right? And have that person who could say, all right, look, this is what we need to do, or this is the steps you need to take, right? After hearing it. And I think that's two big things to be able to accept both. So a cheer squad and all-star squad, right? And knowing how to separate that. And then second, listening to the feedback and then acting on it, right, is a big thing because I don't think many of us struggle with big ideas and the end picture of what we want the journey to look like. I think the struggle is within it, right? The steps you have to take to get there. So I used to have our coach used to say you have your goal that you have at the end, and then you have what's called destination goals, and that's each stop, each destination along the road that gets you to that goal. What are your destination goals? And that's just how he kind of broke it down. So for you, which I can't tell you how intrigued I am. I'll be honest, I would be terrified to do this, but you wrote a book and you took the chance to put yourself out there like that. Tell me what it was like the moment you decided, I'm going to put the pen to paper, put my thoughts, my feelings, my ideas out there for everyone and anyone to read, judge, criticize, utilize, whatever it may be. What was that like?
Matt, my first book, I love this question. My first book came from a speech. So as a coach, you're always speaking to students and you're always speaking to your athletes, you're always speaking to players. So I'm a speaker first. Like my goal is always to inspire people's lives. So I spoke to a group of students who were on campus for a tour when I was at Southeast Missouri State University years ago. And I was coaching there, and they asked me to speak to students who were visiting campus.
Mhm.
Gave this speech, and it resonated with them. And essentially, it was about going from valley to victory. That's what my first book is about, the game changing assist. And so I just kept giving that speech for years, literally to every group of students that I could. When I moved back to St. Louis, when I stopped coaching, I went back and just like started giving this speech and it resonated. And Matt, I saw someone else's book and I was like, all right, I can do this. Like it's time to put this on paper. And so I wrote the book, but it was nerve-wracking to
Yeah.
actually ask people for feedback. And then when the feedback from them conflicts, someone says it's good, someone says it's not, what do you believe? And at some
Mhm.
point, you just trust it. You trust yourself, you trust your intention behind the book, and you know that you can always go and make edits later and
Yeah.
update it.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I'm going to say this live. I've never said this
All
before,
right.
but it's being updated right now. The very first
Okay.
book, The Game Changing Assist, is being updated. It was originally published in 2012, so it's being updated and will be released next year. So I'm
I
excited about that.
love that. All right, we got breaking news on here. I'm down with that.
Yes, yes, that is breaking news. You're the first person I've said that to publicly.
I love
So
that. I love that. And then, so what was the feedback once you did release it, and once it was out in the world? How was that for you?
it was received well,
Great.
from players to parents to teachers. Some schools used it for students, like in 6-week programs, because it's broken out into 6 chapters: voice, vision, value, valley, victory, and volunteering. So there are these there's a framework, the 6 V
Hmm.
framework, and each framework can be utilized with teams and organizations. And so because of the feedback, that's why there's another edition. I highly recommend, we talked about this before you hit record, every athlete write a book,
Yeah.
create a speech. People are listening to you anyway. You may
Yeah.
as well create something concrete that helps them long after your playing days.
Yeah. Great piece of advice. And that was going to be my next question to you. For the just the student athlete who's listening now and whose kind of world and mind are going all over the place. Do I do this? Do I do this?
Mhm.
Kind would you recommend, like you just said, whether it be write a book, whether it be take the social media, create your digital resume, LinkedIn?
Mhm.
Do you recommend that every single student athlete should be doing something to put their story out there?
Yes. Yes, I recommend you're doing something to put your story out there. You're ultimately building your body of work. You're
Yeah.
building a portfolio of work. And you pick the medium that aligns with you. I enjoy speaking and writing, so that makes sense. I have an incredibly hard time turning on a camera and just talking to nobody.
Hmm.
That is very awkward for me. But maybe you're great. I have a homegirl who played ball and she loves her YouTube channel. She will do all her makeup, turn the camera on, and talk to nobody. And I'm like, girl, how do
That's
you just
right.
talk to nobody? That is so weird to me. But she couldn't imagine standing in front of 1,000 people, and I love it. So
Yeah.
you pick the medium that works for you.
Yeah. That's like, see, that's good advice because I feel like a lot of times we might struggle with the imposter syndrome. And
Hmm.
you may see something or see somebody doing something, and then you try it, and then it's not for you, and boom, we give up and we end it there. But like you said, it's what do you enjoy first? How do you feel? I wouldn't even use the word comfortable because I'm sure starting anything is uncomfortable. I know for me it was
Hmm.
uncomfortable, but I've always been more of a face-to-face kind of talker person. Like so this kind of help goes down my lane a little bit more. I'm not
Hmm.
necessarily a writer yet, but you got me intrigued maybe. But I'm more of a speaker. But then what I do get a lot of feedback on with this is how did you this is a tough question, but it always comes down to where athletes are like, I just feel like if I start that now, it's not authentic. And if I start that now, it's going to come off as generic, fake. How would you, give someone advice to say, hey, this is how it can be authentic, or maybe start here? And how did you overcome that? If you did have imposter syndrome, I don't know if you did, but if you did, what would be your recommendation to
Yeah.
somebody who's struggling with that right now?
Oh, I love this. I have so many thoughts. I'll give you two of them though,
All right.
in an effort to keep the conversation going. And then we can dive into more a little bit later.
All right.
Let's touch on imposter syndrome first. One of my friends, his mentor told him this. I love it. Imposter syndrome is only for intelligent people. It's for people who actually know they don't know everything. So, imposter syndrome is something that we apply to ourselves when we don't know. But people who don't have self-awareness don't care about imposter syndrome. They don't even think about it. So
Yeah,
you're already ahead of the game if you if you're aware that you don't know everything. That's a good thing.
I love that.
So you're not an imposter. You're actually just self-aware that you don't know something, and that's okay. Like
Yeah.
that's okay. So we can remove that label because it often stops us from taking action. Part two to that is only talk about what you know. You're not
Yeah.
an imposter if I know basketball. I know what I did on the court. Look, you can Google it. I know what
Yeah.
I've done. If I teach basketball, I'm not an imposter. If I
Hmm.
saw the way that what I said impacted those student lives, there is not that is real. So talk
Yeah.
about what's real for you. If you start asking me to talk about physics, I'm gonna start fumbling and mumbling and bumbling, and you're gonna know that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So talk about what you know. And as you learn more, then you'll talk about those things that you learn.
Yeah.
And you can either learn by doing or you can learn by from someone else. So Harvard, for example, they do tons of research and people quote Harvard studies. I don't have to do the study to quote the study to know that it's real. So
Hmm.
talk about things that are real, that have been researched or there's evidence for, or talk about what you have evidence for that you have done.
Yeah.
And you won't feel like an imposter at all.
I've never heard it put that way. With the imposter syndrome is for intelligent people, and as you said it, I it just changed the frame of how I think about that.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's a perfect way to put it, right? That's a perfect way to combat that feeling. Is that exactly like to change the framework of the way that you portray what you're trying to do. And I also think if you come at it authentically, right, you're putting it out there for the reasons that you feel matter most, not just to do something or just to put something out there because you feel like you have to post every week or once a day, whatever it may be. But if you really are authentic about it, and then two, that's my go-to advice is speak to what you know. And
Yeah.
oftentimes as athletes, I feel like we get so wrapped up in our world, we feel like it's mundane. And it
Hmm.
wasn't until I was older in my profession, I work with people a lot one on one, and from all different industries, different professions, all different levels of within the industry. And over the years, I started to realize they had so many questions on what it was like just to be an athlete.
Hmm.
What'd you do day to day? What was, and then you start to tell them what school was like and getting up at 6 a.m. to lift and traveling to this on the bus. And the stories you'd be talking, I'd be talking to one of the higher ranking politicians in the entire state about my college basketball, baseball teammate or something, right? So it was there where I started to validate those things too, which is why we really point current student athletes to just tell your story as is right now. And then as you get into the world, you start to adjust, you start to add on to that story. And then I had somebody who right now she's going to graduate at the end of this year. This is her senior year, her last season, and she's at a point where she knows she wants to help people, which is really general,
Hmm.
right? Like she knows that
Yep.
that what she wants to do, she wants to impact lives. And then we started to talk a little bit about being able to tell her story. She traveled, she's an international student athlete. She came to America on her own. She had to figure out on her own. She transferred universities. I mean, a big major decisions that she made on her own. And then she expressed some interest in telling her story to other student athletes, public speaking. And I know that's something that you excel at. Tell me a little bit about your public speaking journey, where that got started. I'm sure probably felt like it got started on the court as a coach, but then how you were able to harness that and grow it.
I love this. I love this. I feel like as an athlete, you have this. Often there's a few people on the team who have this natural affinity for speaking and inspiring. There's always a couple of them who
Mm-hmm.
who don't hesitate when the team needs to hear something. So if you're listening and you're that person, this part is for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not that person, stay, but this is
Yeah.
for those who are the ones who are the speakers and the inspirers. It started for me before coaching, actually. I remember the moment distinctly. One, my very first basketball team, one of my old coaches asked me to come and speak to that team when I was in college. My AAU team practiced in our college gym, and I remember they were sitting on the bleachers, and I spoke to them about college life and about working hard. And I was on this speaker's high. You know those
Yeah.
people who get runner highs and they're all
Yeah.
like juiced up? I never got that. I
Yeah.
get that speaking though. Don't get the runner's high.
Yeah.
So I got that, and so I've known that that is in me. It's not something that I wanted to pursue or try to go do. That's just who I am. Then I majored in communications. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in communication. When it was time to give presentations, I was always the first one to raise my hand. I
Yeah.
wasn't trying to be a speaker. So, this young lady who you're mentioning, there's something already in her.
Yeah.
My advice to her would be, and this is what I did, I spoke to everybody I could. Every class I could speak to, anytime I coached, I was the one. Look, when I was at Marquette University, I was director of ops. We had head coach Terry Mitchell had been coaching forever, four assistant coaches. At halftime, she would let me go and address the team, like
Yeah.
because that was just in me, right?
Yeah.
There could have been others, but I was the one. And so I love, absolutely love that someone else saw that. So for the young lady you mentioned, find every school, every team, any class, just pitch yourself and don't wait for people to come find you. That's something that I've learned and which I would have known more of earlier. So now
Yeah.
I just pitch. I mean, I will email anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stop there. But yes, pitch yourself, speak to everyone that you can, and your skills will continue to refine.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's where she's at now. It's and we talked a lot about digital resume. We talked a lot about LinkedIn being okay, and it went down, to the imposter syndrome and that kind of thing, which we all touched on. So I know she'll listen to this, but and then you did touch on it a little bit, but now all these years later, what does speaking mean to you now, where you are in your career and your journey, and when you get a chance to speak in front of a room full of people, an auditorium full of people, whatever it may be, what still draws you back to you still get that same level of excitement? And what is it that draws you back consistently to that?
I sweat.
Yeah.
I get
Fair.
nervous every time. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not that I'm not prepared. It's like game time for me. It feels like game time. So I believe that our words have the power to positively impact the lives of others. So that is a core belief. So that's what draws me back. The second part is I really believe in the V6 framework, going from valley to victory. I believe that there is a process that can help us go through these ups and downs.
Yeah.
And I believe in continuous learning. And so that's the journey and why I continue to do it because it's a gift. And if you don't use these gifts, you'll lose
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Before I have one more question on this, do you think it's I would say, I mean, I'm sure everyone doesn't fit into the same box, but would you recommend just taking a shot, reaching out to people, reaching out to your old high school, reaching out to AU teams, and just trying to get an opportunity to speak in front of people just to get the experience, even if it's just
Yes.
once? Yeah,
Speak as much as possible. Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
So I work with Speaker Hub, the largest speaker platform on the planet. We have over 60,000 people on our platform.
Wow.
We do daily trainings. I mean, I've met speakers from all over the world. Our focus is you have to be findable. You have to pitch yourself. Don't wait for people to come find you. Literally go and pitch yourself. I've sent thousands of emails on
Right.
my behalf and on the behalf of others. And
Yeah,
I have a major speaking event coming up in February, but I reached out to them. They
yeah,
didn't know. They didn't
yeah,
know that I existed.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's well, congratulations on that. But
Thank you.
even more so, that's I mean, that's the professional world. That's the life. So for me in business, if I were just to sit back and wait for people to call or clients to
Yeah.
call, it would never work, right? I feel like it's also just getting comfortable, just starting to put yourself out there,
Mm-hmm.
going to find the opportunity. And then when I'm talking to college student athletes, it's as simple as if you need something to correlate it to, maybe it's going back in the gym and shooting
Getting
those extra
shots.
foul shots, just take it, just doing it yourself instead of waiting for that to come to you. For me, maybe it's going in and taking those extra swings in the cage at 8 o'clock at night after the whole day is done, and just you're going to find that opportunity. That's all that is, and it's the same thing in my world. It's just making that phone call, sending that email, following up on that connection.
Yeah.
Is as simple as what we relate to in our world as just putting in the extra work.
And
Um,
there's
Go
Oh,
ahead.
Matt,
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say there's a compound effect to that.
Yeah,
If you continue to do it, things always feel slow at first,
yeah,
and then it takes off in ways that you can't imagine, but you just have to keep going. And it's something I stopped. Like I spoke at Florida State, I've spoken at national conferences, and those opportunities came to me. And I thought that they would just keep coming and
yeah,
realize, oh no, you have to actually like go out. And so my point is, do not get complacent when things happen that you didn't necessarily push for.
right.
When that happens, you should actually push more.
Yeah,
Don't relax when really good things happen because if you do, you're going to expect them to always happen. And life doesn't work that way. Be
yeah.
grateful for the unexpected, wonderful things, but don't stop pushing toward the vision that you have.
Yeah, and it's yeah, and I learned that lesson in business. You have a good
Hmm.
month, a good quarter, and you feel like, all right, time to retire, let the money just keep rolling in.
Hmm.
It just doesn't work like that, and you have to again, we speak. This platform we speak a lot to student athletes, and then some who aren't who just enjoy listening to student athletes talk. But we already do it. You practice every day. You have your regimen every day. You just translate that to whatever it is you want to be successful in, right? So you could be having a great month, a great quarter, a great year, but day to day operations, just
Yes.
consistency. Be consistent. Hit those marks, which is which is what you're preaching, which I find that I can always resort back to knowing if I just put that work in, I'll be okay. Doesn't
Matt.
mean it's going to be easy all the time. You're still
Mm-mm.
going to have to adjust and pivot, but you just put the work in, and you know you can rest assured in that and have some confidence in that for sure. Um,
Yes, I want to mention this. It's because we're talking about speaking and putting the work in. There's something called leverage. You can use technology. So let's say you're incredibly busy and you don't have time to reach out. There's ways you can automate that. There are ways that you could hire someone. Maybe you have a little cousin that needs an internship. Hire them to do research and send things for you. There are different ways that you can leverage other people and technology in order to get to your goals faster. You don't have to do everything. You know what needs to be done. You need to do it so you can teach them how to do it, or you know
Mhm.
what it's supposed to look like. But once you have that, then there are other ways to get things done.
Oh yeah, exactly. And when you're there, then you're cooking. Then you gotta go,
Yes.
and that's big. So now, before we got on, we talked a little bit about now you're writing another book, a children's book, which I love. Tell me tell me about that. What's the basis of the children's book?
The children's book is called A Ball and a Chance. A Ball and a Chance.
I
I
love it.
have lived with the A Ball and a Chance um, idea for 20 years. I ran mentoring programs called A Ball and a Chance. I did a speaker series called A Ball and a Chance. And this is the next evolution of A Ball and a Chance. So this book is about a little girl named Destiny who's very tall and feels out of place. Destiny has an auntie that coaches basketball that invites her to a camp in Colombia. And there, Destiny finds and meets other kids, but finds her place and develops more confidence. That's the gist of it. So, this book is really about how sports can take you to meet people all over the world. It's about how family and community work together to support the dreams of our young people. And
Hmm.
then it's also about this central theme that goes through the book. And there's a line in the book where Destiny's afraid, and her aunt tells her, "It's new, it's hard, it's possible. With courage and heart, you'll be unstoppable." And so I want our babies to know that they are unstoppable. And so that is repeated throughout the book. It's new, it's hard, it's possible. With courage and heart, you'll be unstoppable.
That's
What is
right.
courage and what is heart? We can dive into that as well.
Yeah, that's something I would put on my kid's wall. If I could put that on there, that's something I put on the wall. And then what? I mean, you just said it, but and I mean this because I really appreciate it. What made you decide to direct towards children? And not to jump ahead of you and cut off, but I'm a dad of two young boys, and one of my biggest things that I try to do is let them learn the world as they do, but to make sure that it's done in a way that's honest, pure, uh, and just what I consider the right way, right? Being kind and having, and so I guess what I'm trying to say is I just try to be the best role model that I could be. So when I hear this, it I resonate with it because I think what they read, what they see is so important to help them learn the world, right? And from through different stories. So what made you pivot and point in that direction towards children?
This was not a part of my plan at all. No part of my plan. Let me start there. This
I
is what
love
happens in life. It started with speaking. Everything's for me is like it goes back to basketball and speaking. So
it.
I was asked to be on a panel at the Boys and Girls Club, Matthews Dickey Boys and Girls Club that I grew up playing basketball at.
Oh,
This was
yeah.
in May, and they were having an event to help kids be excited about literacy for the summer. It was the book bash. And I was one of the authors who was on a panel. And the event organizer called me and said, "Angie, we're so excited. You're going to be a part of this event. However, this is a K-5 event. It's for young kids. None of your books are targeted for K-5." I got off the phone with her, Matt, and said, "Okay, guess I need to write a children's book.
There we go. Yeah.
These are the kids in my neighborhood who go to the Boys and Girls Club. What? I have to have something for them."
Yeah.
And that started me to think about the story, the type of story I wanted to tell. What do I want them to know? I don't have children. And
Mhm.
so I was thinking about what do I want my nieces and nephews and little cousins? What do I want? What's the central theme that I
Yeah.
want them to know in addition to having faith in God? Like, what do
Yeah.
I want them to know about what's possible for their lives?
Yeah.
So that prompted me to write a story based on my lived experience. So it was authentic, but
Hmm.
also they could see themselves and families could see themselves as the various characters in the story. So it's more
Yeah.
than Destiny. Their
Yeah.
parents, there's an auntie, there's the people, the kids that she meets when she's there. who are actually real kids that I adore who live in Colombia. So
Right.
it's a really cool story.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it sounds familiar. Tall basketball, Columbia. I think I heard that. I heard that somewhere before. But that's, I mean, that's the authentic side of it, right? That's the true passion of side of where you can recall on your experiences and then, kind of put that in the book. And then I don't know if you know this or if you can even say this, but when do you plan on the book being released?
The release is planned for March.
Wonderful.
Women's History Month, March Madness. So
Uh,
we're planning a big, big release in March and book tour. Recently, I did a pilot of
um,
the program. So the book comes alive. There's
yeah.
the book, but then there's the basketball program that accompanies the book.
Ooh, I love that.
And so recently, a few weeks ago, I did a basketball program with this homeschool group of students. I read the book, started crying. This is
Yeah,
another
yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Read the book to them, and then we got on the court and did various drills that bring the book to life. And we did some
Wow.
talking in English and Spanish so that the book becomes real and they become destiny.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you
So
ever do
March,
you still go back to Columbia at all?
I do.
That's wonderful.
I do. There's a basketball camp that's planned for April that a girls basketball camp there that's coming
Oh,
up. So
wonderful.
yes.
Yeah, the
I live it.
power.
I live it. I
I
live the
love
book.
that.
This is my life.
Yeah, that's great. And we're definitely going to put that in the description of this episode, because that's something that I know for sure I'm going to look forward to seeing, reading, bringing home to my family. I'm really excited, and mostly it comes down to just because of just even the hour to get to know you, right? Just kind of what you've been through and where you're going and where your values are. I think it's really important for people like you to continue to spread your voice, your word. It means a lot to bring it back in. If and I ask this question in different ways, but I try to ask it to everyone that's willing to share some time to people who are listening to this. If you and I know you are often, but if you were in a room full of juniors and seniors in college, and majority of them who know, hey, this is starting to come to an end. I don't see a future after playing. I've gotten lucky. Playing college sports is a privilege for sure. Hopefully, you leverage it and help the education, but you're going to have to try something new. I think we discussed earlier, there's a fear that comes with that.
Mhm.
In general, what would be your recommendation for that person listening to this right now who's trying to figure out where they're going to go and what they're going to do?
I love this. I love this. One of the greatest assets that college athletes have are a number of professionals who are already helping them. I didn't do this. This is what I tell my 19-year-old self.
Yeah.
Set up a meeting with everyone in the athletic department. Get to know the marketing people, get to know the operations people, get to know the events people, get to know the fundraising, everything you want to know about the business world and our philanthropic community happens in your athletic department. And they're going to be so impressed.
Yes.
Set up a meeting with them and ask, tell me about the journey to getting where you are. Be completely transparent. Here is my major. I majored in communications. I'm not exactly sure what my next steps are. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to understand your journey so I can learn about different industries.
Yeah.
Two things are going to happen. One, they're going to think about their network and
Hmm.
who else they can connect you to. And then two, you're going to need a letter of recommendation. You're going to need
Yes.
someone or multiple people to write on your behalf
Yes.
and put in a word for you. So it gives you people to recommend, and then it also allows them to crack open their network and think about people they can connect you with. So just go talk to people. That's my
I mean,
recommendation.
that is golden, right? For so many, and myself included, we take it for granted. Again, for the athlete, we get lost in our day to day. You almost feel like at some point, you almost feel like it's never going to end. And sometimes you don't even realize the amount of people that are there to help you. I wish I took more advantage of it. And it's funny you say that because um, I didn't realize that. I realized it right after school, and I feel like I did a pretty good job of getting back. But I had a coach, my college coach, who he helped me secure and kind of led me into entrepreneurship indirectly. But I'll never forget, it was my senior year. Now, baseball, there's 35 guys on the team. We're together every day. Not all of us loved school. Not all of us are the greatest athletes. We love baseball, and I was one of those. And I never forget. I had a meeting with my head coach over something with class, maybe not going, whatever it might have been. But he looked at me and he said, "You know what?" He goes, "All these years, because he really did care, and he cared about all of us, and he really made sure that he did the best to make us successful." And he told me, he goes, he goes, "I'm done. I've had enough." He goes, "But the one thing I want you to know is you have the gift of gab." And I've heard that before, like not someone saying it to me, but I knew what that meant. But he said you spend more time getting yourself in trouble and talking yourself out of trouble than just doing the work that it would take just to avoid all that. He said, but I want you to think about that because for the last year, 2 years, you've been able to, you know, I'd have to talk to professors, talk to the dean of my, just to, stay eligible and get going, right. And stay there. And, long story short, that kind of connected me. He put me in connection with somebody at the university, our dean, told him that. And then that's how it was maybe 5 or 6 years later, I got introduced to the person who then introduced me to business, which utilizes my gift of gab. So I think I'm making my coach happy. I can speak a little bit, but point being, it was through connections at the university when I was actually just myself. When I felt kind of relief there, I'm like, all right, I could stop talking myself out of this bad grade or talking myself out of this teacher. Please don't tell coach I didn't come to class today. And we kind of just had real conversations on, hey, maybe something like sales or maybe working with people or something that you'll be good at. So to your point, I spent the first 3 years not taking advantage of it. It was the last semester of my fourth year where the professors and were kind of I was just open with them and said, hey, I don't necessarily love this, but this is what I like to do. I like to work with people. I like to talk to people. And that last semester really changed my life, down the road. It got me to where I am today. So I've never actually had someone say that advice, take advantage of everyone you have around you. So I appreciate that. And you just said it if you were speaking to your 19-year-old self, but I do always ask this question. So you kind of stole the thunder from me on that one. But let's say you are speaking to yourself at that point in time. And let's put it a little forward. Let's say when you're in Germany, what would you say to yourself now looking back? What would be the advice? Would you tell yourself you're on the right path? Would you tell yourself it's going to be okay? What would be the advice to yourself?
Um, it's funny that you ask. I would say stay in Germany. Keep traveling. Keep traveling. Keep traveling. Yeah. Because
I love that.
the world is bigger. I was homesick, so I came back.
Yeah,
And I would say keep traveling. Yeah. The world is so much bigger than home and you'll
yeah,
be fine.
yeah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I kept you a little longer than I promised you. I mean, I could ask you 100 questions over about your journey, but I do want to tell you that first of all, I appreciate you coming on and sharing even just a fraction of your story. But I'm really such an admirer of the steps that you take. It's something that I still work on every day. It's a big part of me of just trying to grow as a person, to be willing to take chances, to be willing to do things that are different, that I'm not used to. Because I do think it's easy to settle into where your comfort zone is. So I truly admire what you have going on. I truly thank you. Um, for those who are listening and might have resonated with your story, is there a way that they can contact? Would LinkedIn be the best way for someone to reach out to you? Is there another platform that would be good for someone who may have questions or want to dive deeper into your story with you?
You can definitely find me on LinkedIn, Angela R. Lewis, like rebound,
Yep.
Angela R. Lewis.
Hey.
And then my website is angelarlewis.com, or you can hit me up on Instagram, the Angela R. Lewis. So I would love to connect. If you're an athlete, if you're a coach or administrator, would love to connect and
I
talk to
love
you.
that. And we will put all of that in the description to make it easy for anyone. And I recommend everyone to reach out. I reached out to Angela and she was more than willing to come on and share her time, which I appreciate a ton. And I'm also going to put both books, and March will be waiting. I can't wait. And maybe we connect again and kind of get an update on how everything's going. But I know you're going to kill it just because of your story and the kind of person you are. So I want to thank you so much for your time. I loved having you on. Thank you for everything that all the knowledge you spilled here.
Thanks, Matt. I really enjoyed it.
All right, great. Thank you. Let's see here.